So this is a video I've been wanting to make for a while, and I was actually just away for a while. So it's been, I guess, about a week since I made a video, and I guess in that time I had opportunity to contemplate a few things, like what was going to go into this one, and I also had a chance to reconnect with some old friends. Another kind of a reunion event where we were kind of a big group of guys getting together on a little getaway vacation, and had a chance to talk to guys that hadn't talked. Mostly dads, pretty much all dads. There were only really a couple that weren't dads, and yeah, just hear some of the stories, hear about some of the interests of the kids and different dynamics and different components. And as a lot of you probably know, I'm pretty hands-on and present with my kids, and very sort of intentional and deliberate in not just how I am with my kids and how I um, interact with them. And there's a lot of levels to this. There's a lot, and we're not going to cover, you know, even most of it. We're going to cover a little bit. We're going to scratch the surface, but just to kind of open up maybe a new window on some of the things that could be causing a real challenge with you and your kids that are just not obvious, and that have a tendency to make things worse. The more you kind of do them, it's almost like they have the opposite effect, even though it seems like you're doing the right thing, but it seems to be making things worse. So if you've got challenges, with your kids, doesn't matter how old they are, whether they're 5, 10, 15, doesn't really matter, 20. So it kind of comes down to, let's start with really small children. We're talking the 1, 2 years old kind of thing, like a toddler. You can't talk to a toddler like you talk to a 6-year-old, and you certainly can't talk to a 2-year-old like you talk to a 12-year-old, or like you talk to somebody at your office. And believe it or not, I see this all the time. The language is so important. It's so important. A number of reasons why, but primarily a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, even up until about 6 or 7, they're not, from a brain perspective, they're not at all like a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old or an adult. The brain waves, if you were to hook up a 2 or a 3-year-old to measuring equipment, right? So if you could do a display, right, on a screen showing the brainwaves of a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, what you would see is something that looks very similar to the brainwaves of an adult when an adult is in the dream state. So think about that. What does that mean? Well, when you're in a dream state, your brain waves slow down and they go into theta. It's theta brainwaves. It's like 4 to 7 cycles per second, 4 to 7 hertz. And when you're in a dream, it's not like when you're awake, is it? right? When you're in a dream, anything's possible. Anything, right? There's somebody here doing something over here in a place over here with this person over there, and then you're walking around reality. That kind of stuff couldn't happen because one of those people's not alive anymore, let's say, right? Um, but you know how it is when you're in a dream, right? It doesn't compute if you try to explain it in linear terms, like in your walking around state. That brainwave state is how a 2 or 3 year old, 4 year old, 5 year old, it isn't until 6 or 7 year old, till they're about 6 or 7, that the brainwaves start to change and they become predominantly a little faster and they move into alpha. So maybe you're familiar with these terms, maybe you're not. But alpha is when you're relaxed and when you're contemplative, when you're more focused on your inner world, less focused on the outer world. You're less in reaction and you're more in contemplation, to be really simple. And then as you get up and start moving around and you're interacting with your environment, you're more plugged into it, your senses are more active. Then you get into beta. Beta's faster, 15, 20. Then you get into higher beta, and then you get into high beta. So there's like a low beta, mid-range beta, and high beta. High beta is what you get into when you're kind of stressed, when you're getting stressed or getting frustrated, and then that's kind of the really unhealthy end, where you start to get the cortisol and the fight or flight kind of thing, right? So you get triggered, you start to get annoyed and frustrated, you're moving into high beta. Not healthy, but you move into the sympathetic nervous system, right, which is the fight or flight. So you get into that, and what happens? Digestion shuts down, your immune system starts to shut down. Any kind of healing, right? Other components, other aspects of the brain and the systems of the body that are not related directly to survival in a physical sense. So like running away, fighting, right? Fight or flight. Whatever else. I mean, there's no point focusing resources of the body on digestion and the immune system and regeneration and those kinds of things if you're dealing with a life or death situation, right? You got to escape. And so a lot of people spend a lot of time in that, and that's a real issue. And we'll probably come back to this in a bit, but when you're dealing with a 2 or 3 year old or 4 year old, the kids in this, that kind of a preschool, kindergarten kind of an age, they absorb things. They don't have the rational filter. They don't have deductive reasoning. They can't tell if you're being sarcastic. They don't know what a joke is. They don't know what a joke is. If you're joking to them and you think it's funny to the guy at the office. It might be funny even to a 12-year-old, but it's not funny to a 2 or 3 year-old. They take it literally. And they take it right in. They absorb it. It goes right in. It prints right into their cognition, into their synapses. It imprints there, creates a memory, performs part of their understanding, and they have to then try to make sense of it. And if you're telling them a joke and it's not real, they don't know that it's not supposed to be real. They don't know. And then they have an experience that contradicts it, and they can't figure out. There's confusion, right? That's kind of one little thing, and I see that happen a lot. The other thing is, well, there's a couple other things I'm going to talk about. One is also using terminology or language that they're not familiar with. When it comes to kids, you have to really break things down and use really, really simple terms, right? So I see parents using the same kinds of terminology, same kinds of expressions and phrases that they use with older kids. You can't do that with little kids. And then the next thing, which is I mean, there's lots, but this is just the one I want to cover. When you're talking to a child about, like when you're in a setting boundaries kind of a mode, and you want a child to not do something, it has to be positive, meaning it can't be negative. So, for example, if you see your child running down the sidewalk and you want them to stop running away from you and to come back, you can't say, stop, don't run. When it's negative, what happens is you're telling them what not to do, but you're not telling them what to do instead. And this is so critical because it generates so much frustration in parents, because they're like, the kids don't listen. The kids don't listen. I tell them to stop. I tell them don't do that. I tell them don't do that. They're going to keep doing it if you keep it negative like that. That's what I call being negative, right? Don't stand on the couch. Don't this. Don't do that. Don't do that. You're not telling them an alternative. You have to take their focus and their attention, direct it to something else. So instead of don't stand on the couch, don't stand on the couch, where the focus is on stand on the couch, stand on the couch. Don't or do, it doesn't matter. The focus is on stand on the couch. So stand on the couch is the concept that stays in their brain. Don't do it, don't do it, doesn't matter. What you would say instead in this example is, okay, let's get down. When we're on the couch, we're on our knees or on our bum. We're kneeling or we're sitting. We're not standing. It's okay to use a little bit of negative when you're creating contrast, right? We're not standing, we're sitting, or on your knees, or on your back. You can lie down, you can kneel on the couch, you can sit on the couch, but you can't stand on the couch, right? Standing on the couch, someone's going to fall off the couch and land on the coffee table, just as an example. And so everything in life with a child, it's not about getting them to not do that, or to, you're not allowed to do this, you can't do that, stop doing this, stop doing that. There's a teaching, everything is a teaching moment. There's a teaching moment, right? Don't stand on the couch. The child just learned nothing. You might as well have said nothing. But if you say, okay, let's get down. If you're on the couch, sitting, right, on your bum, sitting, can you sit? Yeah, or on your knees, you can kneel. We can lie down. But are we standing on the couch? No, we're not standing on the couch. Okay, why? Why? If we stand on the couch, what happens if we fall? Right? Here's a coffee table. If you fall, you land on the coffee table, how's that going to feel? Does that sound like fun? See, that's an example where you do it. You're walking them through a scenario so they can imagine it, they can see it, and they can then have some buy-in with you. That, oh, I see. Right? That's a teaching moment. It's a learning moment. Now, they're learning something. This is now the concept of safety, right? And you do this with everything, right? You ask them, is that what we want? What do you think happens if we do that? Let's imagine what might happen if we were to do that. They start, oh yeah, okay. Okay, so do we want to do that? Does that sound like a good idea? To be standing on the couch, jumping on the couch? No. And they'll say no, and you'll say no, and you'll have agreement there. Now it's not negative, it's positive. You're giving them something else to do. Okay, so when we're on the couch, we're sitting. We're not standing. We're sitting, we're lying down. You always have positive reinforcement. Not it's different than the idea of, always talk about, what they did well. That's a little bit different. You can do that. I mean, that's something else. This is about always shifting their focus, not trying to just stop them. Because if you try to get them to stop or don't, it's not going to work. They're going to keep doing it. You're going to get frustrated. They're going to learn nothing. And then it's going to escalate. And then the next time around, they're going to do it again until they've done it so many times, and then they're just afraid, right? And then they don't do it out of fear. That's not what you want, because that's one example. That's the couch, right? How about everything else? How about when it comes to making your bed and brushing your teeth and packing your bag and, changing the toilet paper roll when you're in the bathroom, clearing the table, setting the table, like every little thing. If it's positive, there's a learning, there's an understanding, there's a communion. You're communing with your child frequentially. Right? It's a meeting of the minds. You're present with them and you're guiding them. It's all about guidance, right? The more you try to shut them down in whatever respect, the more shut down they're going to end up feeling. And when they start to feel shut down, and this is a bigger issue that I'll probably talk about in other videos, but now you're starting to move in the area into the realm of, depression. Maybe not when they're 4, but maybe by the time they're 14, if they keep getting a lot of this negativity where they keep getting shut down. Right? Don't do that. No, don't open that. Don't open that. Don't open that. We're not telling them why. There's no learning moment. There's no teaching moment. There's no communion. There's no coming together, meeting of the minds. There's just, oh, okay, don't touch that. And then I can't touch this, and I can't touch that, and I don't even know why. And then eventually the child just starts to withdraw in general and then they start to rebel, right? Because I always got told to do this and that, and I wasn't allowed to do this, and I don't really understand why. It didn't really make any sense, and I just felt, and then they just start to have resentment, right? And you don't understand why, but they start to have resentment. And once they have resentment, that gets really hard to deal with. Once there starts to be a little bit of resentment, it's tough at that point. Like, then you need real focus and real deliberate strategy and action once there's a little bit of resentment. And I'm not covering that here, but let's just say, especially, kids up to 5 or 6, even kids up to 10, 12, really. Humans in general learn by example. And kids, my experience is once they start to get to be like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they start to have a pretty acute sense of hypocrisy. So you're telling them to do something, but you're not really doing it yourself. They'll start to call you on it. Even if they don't really understand how to verbalize it, they're going to start to know. Wait a second. And the thing is, with children, they don't really learn by the words so much as they learn by the vibration. That's why kids learn languages so quickly, and adults take forever. They acquire the language. They absorb it. They just pick it up. And it's the same with everything. They pick up values. They pick up understandings and different kinds of agreements. Like they figure things out. They get this knowing. And so if you think, if you don't want a kid to know what you're talking about, and then you spell out the word, whether they can spell or not, two things can happen. First of all, they can understand by the vibration on some level what you're talking about. And then at the same time, then they feel like you're trying to keep something secret from them. And what are you doing in that case? Right? You're teaching them to be secretive. you're teaching them. It's almost like whispering, right? And then you tell them, oh, it's not polite to whisper, right? And we don't keep secrets, but you're trying to keep secrets, so it doesn't matter. It's almost like lying, right? Do it when they're not around. If there's something that they don't need to know about, right? There's like some kind of adult content that you need to discuss, or it's something you want to discuss with your 10-year-old and you don't want your 4-year-old to be hearing it, then don't do it when the 4-year-old's around. You know, do your best to change the vibration so it's in the kind of vibration that the 4-year-old is going to be able to benefit from, right? Not absorbing conflicted information, because that's what's happening. They're absorbing the information in the environment from the environment. That's what they're doing. So they don't function so much in terms of words. Words are very linear, very linear. There's energy behind the words, for sure. There's all of the thought forms and the emotion related to the words, and kids pick up on all of it. But if you think about going back to what I was saying about the couch, and you say, no, don't jump on the couch. The energy of that is jump on the couch. Don't jump on the couch, jump on, doesn't matter. The energy is jump on the couch. That's what you're broadcasting. Jump on the couch. And then trying to cross it out. So the whole vibration is jump on the couch. The words are jump on the couch, and the vibration is jump on the couch. But it's just like you're trying to attach a negative energy to it. But to the kid, it's just amplifying the energy of jump on the couch. So again, like a recap, you want to focus on the alternatives. So you want to tie the concept of the couch. When we're on the couch, we're lying down on our backs, we're sitting on our bum, or we're on our knees. Does that make sense? And depending on the age of the child, 2, 3, 4, you might say, let me see you sit on the couch. Can you sit on the couch? Can you sit on your bum? And they will. That's a game. That becomes a game for them. Kids learn. Amazing. They have an amazing capacity to learn when they're having fun, when you make something a game. And a game does not have to be exciting and complicated. It can be very simple for a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old. Everything can be a learning opportunity, a teaching moment. Everything can be a bit of a game, a bit of a fun activity. Everything. But adults, and I get it, and I have a lot of compassion for parents in general. You feel stressed, you're in a bit of a rush, and slowing down, getting still, and being present with your child to allow for these kinds of concepts and this kind of interaction, this kind of communication. It's hard. It's hard, right? You gotta work, you gotta drive places, you gotta shop, you gotta do laundry, you have to go to work, you have to get them to school and make their lunch. There's so much. I get it. It's not easy. However, when you don't have the concepts, when you don't have this awareness, what happens? And then even once you have the concepts, it's actually practicing and applying them. And that's the real challenge, like, because you can develop the understanding, you can develop the awareness and have the knowledge, but being able to apply it, that's a whole other thing, right? That's why musicians and and athletes, they practice and they practice and they practice and they train and they rehearse and they do drills. Why? It's because it's creating the muscle memory. So it's just naturally what you start to do. But you have to practice. And I know, well, I don't have time to practice. Okay, but that's just a belief. And there's a whole way that's simple, that's coherent, that's it makes so much sense when you listen to it, when you start to learn it and understand it and see how it works. It's not complicated. It's not easy, but it is not complicated. It's simple, but it's not easy. Why is it not easy? Because you have patterns, you have conditioning, and you have programs that have been handed down from generations, right? Most of the drama and conflict we see in the world now between groups, between individuals, between nations, between politicians, whatever it is there because these kinds of concepts were not part of the upbringing of these adults. They didn't get the benefit of this. They were treated like adults. And their parents had it handed down to them and had it handed down to them. And we're at a point where we're breaking a cycle. We're starting to tell different stories. We're having more kids that are growing up in households where there's a supportive environment, where these kinds of concepts are more understood and more present. They're shared. And you're starting to get kids now that are empowered, that don't feel the resentment, that don't see the contradiction in what a parent says and what a parent does. Like, it's such an obvious thing, but I don't think many people see it at all. If you're stressed and you're rushing and you're frustrated a lot of the time, or you're in drama, or you're struggling, and you're trying to tell your kid what to do, you have to realize that on some level the kid is saying, if I do what you're telling me to do, am I going to end up like you? I mean, it's obvious, right? Why would I listen to you? If I listen to you, I'm going to end up stressed and frustrated. So how are you telling me what to do? I'm not stressed and frustrated. I'm stressed and frustrated when I'm around you. You're stressed and frustrated and you're telling me what to do. Maybe you don't really know what to do. If you did, then maybe you wouldn't be so stressed and frustrated. Now, that's maybe a bit of an oversimplification, maybe, but not really. That's what's going on in the mind of a 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old, 20-year-old. Maybe they don't verbalize it, but that's the energy, right? Why would I believe you? Why am I listening to you? What do you know? Yeah, okay, you've managed to pay the bills and whatever, but don't look happy. You look stressed. You look miserable, maybe, right? Always complaining. Now, again, a bit of a simplification, but I am sure there is something there that everyone can relate to on some level. And if not, then you're doing a really good job. I mean, everyone's doing the best that they can. And I mean, I don't get it right all the time. I don't get it where it's like every moment with my kids, I'm like right on. But most of the time, I mean, I've had the benefit of having kids when I was older. I had the benefit of working with kids when I was younger and didn't have kids. And I've had the benefit of being present and home a lot with my kids and being really focused on how I interact with them. So I'm improving and I'm integrating more and more all the time these kinds of concepts. And so from the time, from before the time I had kids, I was working on this, right? So, and it's not the kind of thing where, you know, it matters how good you are, but it matters that you're aware of this and you are intentional and deliberate in improving in this respect. Because when your kids are 20 and 30, once they've kind of grown up, what story are they going to tell? Right? What are they going to talk about? Imagine, I think about, my kids when they're, 20 years old, let's say, and they're traveling and they're talking to their travel companion and they're talking about when they were young. What's the story that they're going to tell? I see now when I was young how my parents really took the time to hear me, to explain things, to stay positive, not rushing through things, not just getting frustrated with us, but being present with us, slowing down, taking the time to walk us through concepts so we could. Because if you don't walk a kid through a concept, right, you can see where things are going, but they can't. That neural pathway hasn't been created yet. You have it, and you have to walk with them. You have to hold their hand down the path of, if you do this, this is likely to happen. Is that something we want to happen, right? If you fall on the couch and land on the coffee table, is that going to be fun, right? They don't have that neural pathway. They don't see down the path, right? They're so present. And that's a wonderful thing. You want them to stay present. You don't want them living in the future. As they get older, they start to, because that's what we do, living in the future and living in the past, and we stop being present. So we stop living in the now. But they're in the now. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, they're in the now. They don't have the concept of tomorrow. Right? They start to get the concept of tomorrow, and they're 5, 6, the concept of yesterday and tomorrow. They don't have that when they're 2 and 3. They don't. Doesn't mean anything to. They're in the now. So walking them down the next few moves, taking the time to walk with them and to not tell them what's going to happen, but to suggest what could happen. But I don't like to play what if. I tell my kids, they're like, well, what if this and what if that and what if this one? I don't play what if. I play focus on what you like. Talk about if you don't like it, don't talk about it. If it's not something you want to happen, don't talk about it. Talk about what you like. Talk about what you prefer. You want something, manifest it. You want something, you want to do something, go, get your paper, get your pencil crayons or your crayons and draw it. Draw yourself doing it. So much easier as a parent when you teach your kids how to manifest. And as a kid, they're really good at it because they don't have the baggage and they don't have the limitations that come from being boxed in, by society, from television, from school, all this thing, it box the mind, right? Boxing the mind in to a reality where there's just a lot of limiting belief, right? A lot of not having permission to explore, right? Remember that, don't open that, don't go there, don't do this. That removes, it cuts down, it undermines the child's sense of permission. Right? Kids need to be able to explore. They need to be able to explore their curiosity. Their curiosity is really, really healthy, right? That's how we learn. That's how we innovate. It's all about imagination and curiosity. But most of the structures that we have, whether it's the school or the typical household, it's a lot about you can do these things. It's the do's and the don'ts. It's the goods and the bads. Kids need to be able to explore. They need to have an understanding of things. And so having that perspective of, what's the child going to say when they're 20, when they're 30? My parents did the best they could, but they kind of struggled here, they struggled here. That's okay. But you can tell a different story. They can tell a different story, right? My parents taught us how to manifest when we were like 6 years old. They taught us the concept of focus. They taught us the concept of imagination. They taught us the concept of vibration. They taught us to continue to pretend, because kids, they're really good at pretending. They're doing it all the time. My kids are pretending all the time, pretending they're making fairy houses, and they're playing in with a dollhouse, and they're pretending that these two are going for tea together, and they're pretending they're pretending all the time. Pretending is basically creating a template in the non-physical. And once it gets a little bit of focus, you're going to start to get manifestation in the material. Pretend is so important. Imagination is so important. Like Einstein said, imagination is the preview of life's coming attractions. Everything exists in the immaterial before it manifests in the material. Kids are amazing manifestors if you let them. Right? But if they say, I want a bike, and you just run out and buy them a bike, okay. If they want a bike and you tell them, manifest a bike, why not? Well, how are they going to do that? Not your job, how they're going to do that. Not your business, where it's going to come from. Right? It's not your job. Your job is what? What do you want to manifest? How do you want to feel? How do you want to experience yourself? What is the experience that you want to have? Because things are not real. Things are illusions. But the experience of things is real. Your job is to focus on the experience. So if they're drawing a picture of themselves on a bike, or they're drawing a picture of a bike that they have and it has their name on it, and they see themselves in their mind, and then they create it on the page where they have this bike and they're riding this bike and they're showing their bike to their friends, and they're going to manifest a bike. And maybe you don't have to have anything to do with it. Right? We've had lots of bikes come to us. I think of all the bikes we've had, we might have bought one of them. Of the 5 or 6 bikes that my kids have had, I think we bought one of them. They've all come from wherever, So, quantum parenting, it's a thing. It's a big thing. There's a lot of different components to it that you could focus on. But it's the solution. It's the answer. It's the perspective. And if your kids are struggling, or you are struggling with your kids, and you're feeling like there's something wrong with them, something you're not doing, or you should be doing, or they should be doing, and something's not working, this is why. Because kids are more quantum. When you're in a dream-like state, when you're in theta, and even in alpha, you're in the quantum. You're more in the quantum realm than the linear realm, right? In simple terms, you're more quantum and you're less linear. In linearity, things happen slowly. They generally tend to take force and effort. They happen in a sequence of events. We have to do this, and then we can do that, and then this, and then that, and then finally we can do this. Whereas in the quantum, you can manifest things by skipping steps, skipping levels, right? This is what a quantum leap is. So we're all going there. Everyone, the whole planet is going there. There's an acceleration of consciousness, but there's also an acceleration of manifestation. The energy on the planet, the vibration of the planet is accelerating and increasing all the time. And what that means is that you have more on your plate that you need to do, and you have less time to do it. Right? Simple example. 40 years ago, there was one phone in the house, and it was attached to a wall with a cord, and that was it. And it rang once or twice a day, 3 times a day, whatever, right? Now, family of 5, everyone's got their own phone, and the notifications or whatever, an information, a message is received on each phone, whether it's email or SMS or WhatsApp or whatever. I don't know about you, but I might get 50 of those in a day, right? If there's 5 people in the house, that's 250 messages in a day. Phone calls, SMS, text, WhatsApp, Messenger, whatever, right? Instagram, TikTok, whatever, right? Maybe, so instead of now 2 or 3, it's 200 or 300, right? Just let that sink in for a second. For a family of 5. And that's just one example. There's lots, right? There's lots of examples, but everything is accelerating. You have to slow down to keep up. Slower you go, the faster you'll arrive. If you try to speed up to keep up, you're not going to keep up, and something's going to break. And then you're going to try to fix it, and something else is going to break. Whether it's your health, whether it's your wealth, your finances, your job, your whatever. You're going to have more maintenance to do. You're going to have less synchronicity. You're going to need more and more effort. And there's a limit. And everyone's kind of at their limit in terms of how much effort they're able to put forth. Everyone's at the limit, right? You start to have to now sacrifice on what? Quality of sleep, quality of nutrition, sacrifice your exercise, sacrifice your rest and relaxation time, right? So what do? Well, I don't meditate, I don't work out, I go to sleep late, and I get up early. Okay, how long are you going to do that for? Right? It's, you could call it the hamster on the treadmill, but the treadmill's going faster and faster. You got to get off the treadmill. You got to slow down. And you start with intention. Because I know it sounds like, oh, how do I slow down? You have an intention to slow down. Have an intention to experience yourself in a more peaceful and tranquil state. There's only now. If you can get peaceful throughout your day, a little bit in the morning before you get up and a little bit at night before you fall asleep, don't fall asleep with the TV. Don't fall asleep watching YouTube. Don't get up in the morning with radio. Don't get up in the morning with a jolt. Get up in the morning with a little bit of breathing. Get up in the morning, raise your vibration. Imagine, pretend. Imagine, even if you didn't, imagine you just had the best sleep ever and you're so happy you just had a really good sleep. Go to bed in full appreciation of the day, regardless of what the day. Pretend. Such a good day. So pleased. So thankful how the day unfolded. It was such a joy. Such a joy. I really appreciate. I feel so satisfied at how everything unfolded so nicely. It was such a success. Just all around, such a success. Such a beautiful day, such a lovely day. Pretend. I know, kids are going to be better at it than you. That's okay. Learn from them. Learn from them. Okay. probably a good place to end it. And always interested to hear comments and feedback. And also, like I always say, repetition, repetition, repetition. You hear this once and it resonates and you don't listen to it again, very little is going to land, very little is going to end up getting integrated. Repetition leads to integration, right? Things really change when you start to integrate, not just know. Okay, until next time.